Okay, so now we're getting into our more classical wrestling type stand-ups, escapes rather. Instead of rolling into guard or doing, situations where we end up with our back on the floor, now we're going to be looking at a combination of standing up to the feet and rolling back into guard. And then we're going to kind of connect the dots with all of these escapes. So let's look at what kind of stand-ups there are when we're going head first. So what I mean by head first is our head rises first before our hips. So our head comes up before our knees come off the ground. Okay. There are a couple of ways. So if I'm talking about head first, I'm talking about situations where I either build to a referee position and my head rises, or from here I step up and now as I go to come up, my head rises and then my hips rise. If I'm talking about hips first, I'm talking about situations where I build like so, and before my hands come off the floor, my knees come off the floor. So my hips come up first, and then my head comes up second. Okay? So let's look at first head first stand-ups and escapes, and then hips first. So let's go into head first to begin with. So when we're behind our partner, there are a couple of ways that we can stand up from here. We can use tripod methods, and we can use referee methods. We can use inside leg and outside leg methods. Okay? So there are 4 possible situations here. Number 1, just go rear chest lock. Number 1 is from here, we use a referee method where we come up like so. We go inside leg first, like so, and then we pop up to our feet. We can use a referee method where we come up, we go outside leg first, and we stand up and we go. We can use tripod methods, where instead of building to referee position first, we focus not on building height with the hands, but addressing our partner's hands with our hands. Where now from here, we can go inside leg first, and now as we come up, we can build away from our partner. Or we can go outside leg first, where we come in, and we move out and away from our partner. Okay? So, a couple main methods of standing up with our head coming up first before our knees and our hips. A head first method, we go referee position. We stand up inside leg first, like so, and now from here, we come up. We go head first, outside leg, and we come up. Or we use a tripod method, where from here, we come in, we can either address our partner's hands, we can have hands on the floor, we turn, and we go inside leg first. So now, we start coming up. Inside leg goes first before we referee position. We go from almost a tripod where our head's in the floor. We step a leg up, and then we go. Or we come in, outside leg goes in, and we stand and we go. Okay? So we have referee methods and tripod methods using inside and outside leg stand-ups. All right, so we're going to talk about inside leg versus outside leg, what the differences are between the two. First, we're going to look at using a tripod method to go up first versus using a referee method. So when would I use one or the other? Usually, if I can monitor my partner's hands, because the big issue associated with attacking turtle when we're dealing with submissions is we can't come right to a referee position and have our head up and not have our hands monitoring our partner's hands, and then someone just goes in, punches a strangle in, puts 2 hooks in, and you're getting finished, you're getting scored on. Okay, so in general, what I recommend is if you can separate your partner's hands, I use tripod methods to stand up first. If you can't separate your partner's hands, and your partner's insisting on keeping the hands locked, then I use referee methods to stand up. Now there's exceptions to these rules, but in general, this is what I recommend. So what do I mean by this? If my partner has a tight waist, for example, like so, and from here, I can control my partner's wrists. If I can control a wrist, I generally like to use a method where I come in, I step a leg up, and now from here, I come up like so. So now I build to a foot from a tripod. So instead of going hand first, leg second, I stay close like so, making it hard for my partner to insert hooks. I go in, I go outside leg first, or inside leg first, and I stand and I'm ready to go out and away. Okay? If my partner's hands are locked, for example, and I feel like I'm trying to separate the hands and I can't do it, then I generally build up to a referee position first, and then we go. Okay? If at any point I go in to stand up and my partner unlocks the hands and she shoots to a backhand and arm, this is no good now. Now I can't come up. Because now, as my head rises, she can punch a strangle in place, follow me up, and I'm getting beat from here. This is no good. So if I start going up first, instead of stepping legs up first, I go hands first to referee position, and my partner goes to switch to a backhand and arm. Whenever I see a backhand and arm, the strangle is the primary concern. So now from here, I have to go back down. I can start going in. Now now as I address the strangle, now from here, I go in, I start going with my escapes, my partner goes to switch to hand position, and now we can start building up and going up into position. Okay? So whenever I see my partner has a backhand and arm, I cannot be hanging out in referee position like so. Okay? I have to address this and go back down and use different escapes from here. Okay? So that's a couple of things we have to speak on there. Another thing to talk about is base of support and athletic potential from each of these positions. When you're in a referee position, you have a very wide base of support. So it's hard for your partner to break you down to a hip or to a shoulder. You have a great ability to explode up to your feet very athletically. Okay? The drawbacks of a referee position in our sport are that your partner, number one, can easily insert one or two hooks because of the lack of connection of your elbows to your hips and your elbows to your knees, whether it be here or here. So I pop up to a referee position and my partner goes to knock me down, it's very hard to do. But when my partner goes to get a hand around my neck, it's a very easy thing to do. When my partner goes to insert hooks, it's a very easy thing to do. Okay? So while I'm more stable and much more athletic from here, I can move much better, I'm much more stable, I can pop up much faster. The drawbacks are I have no defensive hands because they're on the floor, so my neck's exposed, and my waist is exposed, so my partner bringing two hooks in. So when I move to a referee position, the onus is on me to not hang out in a referee position. The second I decide I'm going to stand up, I pop up to a referee position, and then I go. And then I go. When I'm working from a tripod, like so, and from here, I step a leg up first, and then right from here, I go to move up and away. The advantages are that I have defensive hands. I can fight my partner's defensive hands. I can look to put hands in my back pocket. I can look to separate my partner's hands. And I'm defensively sound from here. Another one of the great advantages is that I have a strong elbow and knee connection, or elbow and hip connection from here. So when my partner tries to insert hooks, it's a difficult thing. If she's behind me, just on the side, she tries to insert hooks from here, she can't do it. Okay? Now from here, I can step a leg up. When she's trying to insert hooks this whole time, it's a difficult thing to do. And now when I'm ready to go, instead of building to a referee, exposing myself to hooks, instead, I just build to a leg, I move out and away. I build to a leg, And now, as I come up, I don't even go to my hands. I don't come here and sit in a referee position. I just come up, I'm fighting at the hands, I step a leg up, and I come right out and I stand up. The great disadvantages of starting in a tripod and using inside or outside leg stand-ups is that you're in a much less athletic position. So your potential for movement to explode up to your feet is drastically decreased because of the fact that I'm not very athletic from here. Here, I'm very athletic. I can immediately just spring up and I'm gone. Whereas from here, it's more slow and labored, but more defensively sound for scoring and for strangles. In addition, because my hands and my knees are not nearly as wide, it's much harder for my partner to insert hooks, but my base of support is compromised from here. So if I'm fighting from here, my partner can't insert hooks as well. If I step a leg up and she just pulls on my hip, I'm going to get knocked over. Okay? So you have to weigh these two against each other, depending on what your partner is good at and what you feel during the match, during the situation. When you're using referee style stand-ups, where my hands come to the floor first, and I build up to my hands before a leg comes up. I'm very stable. It's hard for me to get knocked side to side. And my ability to move quickly into the standing position, my athletic potential, is increased from this position. Okay, I'm very athletic from here. Main disadvantages are that one, my neck is exposed, I have no defensive hands. My waist is exposed. My partner can easily throw one hook in, two hooks in, a long hook for a body triangle. It's pretty easy for her to score from here. Okay? When I'm in a situation where I play with a tripod, where I'm fighting defensive hands and I play from here, and now I step either an outside leg or an inside leg up. When I go to stand from here, I'm not nearly as athletic as I would be if I was from here. So the response time and the time it actually takes me to get up and get away is much slower relative to a referee position. But it's much harder for my partner to strangle me and much harder for my partner to insert hooks. So when I go to stand up, it's hard for her to actually score or submit me from this position. But because of the fact that it's harder for her to score and submit me, because everything's in tighter, makes it so that my base of support is not nearly as strong, and it's a relatively easy thing to return me to my hip. Okay? So you have to weigh these options together based on where you are in the match and what situation you're in. In general, if I feel my partner has a death grip and she's behind my arms, like so, she has her hands locked, and I can't separate the hands, in general, I move to a referee position like so. And now from here, if he switches to a backhanded arm, I have to go back down to a turtle and use different methods. If she stays with the hands locked, it's a pretty easy thing for me to start building up. I'm playing from here. If, however, my partner has a tight waist, for example, okay, and the hands aren't locked, and I can use my hands to monitor my hands. I can use referee position style stand-ups to stand up. There's nothing wrong with that. But just understand, as you come up, your opponent now will have the ability to lock her hands, and that returns become much easier from here. So this is the drawback. But you will stand up faster. But if I can control my partner's hands, like so, now from here, when she goes to start scoring on me, throwing a hook in, if I come up to a referee position, you can do this. I can use a method where I build to a referee position first with control over my partner's hand. But if she quickly pops up to her feet and just throws a hook in, there's some problems from here. So in general, when I can control my partner's hands from not locking, I come up like this. And now, when she goes to throw a hook in, there's no hook to be had. When she goes to follow me up from here, it's pretty easy to separate my partner's hands, and now the chances of being mat return are less likely. So, there's pluses and minuses to both. Pros and cons to referee position, coming up to the hands first, then building to the feet. And there's pros and cons to tripoding using defensive hands, building to the feet first, and then the head rising. All right, so we looked at referee stand-ups versus tripod stand-ups. Now let's look at inside leg versus outside leg stand-ups. All right, both are very good. Both have their pluses and minuses, just like referee versus tripod. Let's take a look first at inside leg stand-ups. When you use inside leg stand-ups, the first thing I'm looking for is some kind of angle, right? If there's weight over my right leg and she's pulling weight down onto my right knee and onto my right hip, I can't step my right leg up. So the first thing I'm going to look to do is to hit a circling motion where I just circle and I blade my hips and I face my partner. Just like we were doing when we were trying to step over our partner's leg. I do the same thing. So I create some kind of disconnect like so, and from here, I step an inside leg up. If I step an inside leg up, whether I go referee, like so, or tripod, like so, I go knee to elbow, like so. So now my partner goes to insert a near side hook. There's no hook that can come into place, okay? Even if she puts her foot through that hole that she just did, there's no hook. Her hook has to be above my knee in order to really be a hook, okay? When I go inside leg, I create some kind of disconnect from the hips. I create a slight angle, and I step a leg up like so. Now from here, when she goes to insert a hook, she can't insert a near side hook, okay? So this is the advantage. When you go with an inside leg stand-up, it's going to be harder for your partner to insert a hook. Now, the issue with this, a couple issues associated with this. When I use an inside leg stand-up, the problem is my partner's goal from this position is to always be knocking me down to a hip. She's going to be pulling on my hip constantly to put weight on my right leg. So the chances of me being able to step up an inside leg are not nearly as high as being able to step an outside leg up. When she pulls on my hip, my left leg becomes light, so the outside leg stand-up is easy. When she pulls on my hip, the right leg becomes weighted, so the inside leg stand-up is harder. So if you have a good opponent behind you, and they're constantly pulling on the hip and putting weight over you, there's weight on the inside leg. So it's actually harder to step the inside leg up a lot of times, and a lot less space and time to step the inside leg up, okay? So the advantages of using an inside leg stand-up is that it makes it almost impossible for your partner to insert a near side hook, okay? The great drawback of the inside leg stand-up is your partner will almost always be putting weight on that near leg and will be crowding your near leg. So it's either like running into your partner's knee like it is now, or there's weight over the knee. It's hard to step the inside leg up. And when you step up the near side leg, understand there's always a risk your partner can run around to the other side and punch in a far side hook. Okay, that's always a danger. All right. So the drawbacks are it's much harder most of the time to step up an inside leg on a talented opponent because there's not enough room, there's weight in the leg, and it's much harder to step the inside leg up. Okay. The great advantage is that it's much harder for your partner to insert hooks on you because of the knee and elbow connection. When you're stepping up an outside leg, the great advantage is that there's weight on the near leg, so there's almost never any weight on the far leg. So it's a pretty easy thing. My partner's behind me to come in, and from here, step up an outside leg. Like so. The disadvantage is when I step the outside leg up, especially from referee position, there's a huge gap, which allows my partner to throw the near side hook in. And now, if she doesn't even pull me out, just insert the hook and get on top of me. If she comes up with me, she inserts a hook. She covers my hip with her left knee. And now this is bad news for me. Okay? There's less issue here if I'm in a turtle position
And I use a tripoding method where now she goes in. I go outside leg. Again, it's a little bit more awkward and a lot less athletic. I go here. Now when she goes to insert the hook, she can't insert the hook. But she can knock me to a hip pretty easily. Okay? So the advantages of the outside leg stand-up is that it's easier to do most of the time because you have a weightless leg. Like so. And we can quickly pop up the second we get the leg up. The disadvantages, however, are that when you go to step the leg up, especially if you're in a referee position, it gives you your opponent more of an opportunity to put a near side hook in, like so. And regardless of whether you're in referee position or a tripoding position, because your outside leg is up, your base of support is compromised. If she pulls me over the right hip, I can always get knocked down pretty easily like so. Whereas if I have an inside leg up, and she goes to knock me down, I have a strong base of support here. And from here, we can build to the feet. Okay? So that's inside leg versus outside leg. When you're working inside leg, it makes it harder for your partner to put a hook in, but it's also harder for you to step your leg up. The hook is harder to insert, and it's harder for your partner to pull you and knock you down to a hip. But your partner should be pulling you to a hip the whole time, so there's going to be weight on the leg, there's going to be less space, it's going to be hard to get the leg up. Okay? And your good partner will run around and put a far side hook in as you go to build up. With the far side, or with the outside leg stand up, especially when you're in referee position, it gives your partner a greater opportunity to insert a near side hook, which is the easier hook to insert, and your base of support is compromised because of the fact that they can knock you to a hip. But the outside or the outside leg is much easier to step up because there's usually no weight on it, and the second you stand up with the outside leg, you have a greater ability to pop quickly and athletically up to your feet in the shortest amount of time possible. All right, let's look at the actual mechanics now of using inside and outside leg stand-ups from both tripod and referee position situations. So we're going to be down, our partner's going to be behind us. We're just looking at standard tight weights for each one. We're just going to look at the mechanics of the actual stand-up. Okay. Now, whether or not I'm using my hands to monitor my partner's hands doesn't really make a difference. The whole thing is when I'm looking for inside leg stand-ups, I look to angle my hips slightly away from my partner, so I create a slight turn out and away, and I angle my hips towards my partner's. If you just try to step the inside leg up, you're going to run into your partner's body. You won't be able to do it. So I move away, I create some disconnection, and I just step a leg up like so. Okay? So now from here, I have a knee and elbow connection, and I have my foot flat on the floor. I lean my weight to my left. So if my partner tries to pull me down to my right hip, it's a difficult thing. So we're side on to our partner. Now from here, when I go to build up, we have a choice of either one, building to a referee position, if we're not going to try to monitor our partner's hands as we come up, or if we have hands on our partner, for example, if we're here and we're here, we go from a tripod right to a situation where our head comes up. And as our head comes up, we just step forward with the left leg, like so. So we go right leg, left leg, we end up in a staggered stance where from here we can look to come in and start facing our partner. Okay? So she has hands in. Let's say we can create a situation where we separate our partner's hands. From here we come through, we create an angle, and we go in with the inside leg. From this position, inside leg comes up here, like so. So now my partner goes to connect the hands. It's difficult. And the second the leg comes up, we stand. I never put myself in a position where I step a leg up and I stay there for any extended amount of time. Okay? I'm too off balance from here and too exposed. So I don't ever step a leg up and just sit right here. If I'm going to come in, I monitor my partner's hands, or I have my hands down, leg comes up, And now from here, we build to a situation like so. And then we walk away and we start using our escapes. So we're in like so, partner's behind us, and we can control our partner's hands. We make space, and from here, we just immediately step a leg up, and the second the leg comes up, we're out and away. Okay? So those are our mechanics for an inside leg stand-up working from a tripod. We move away, we blade our hips towards our partners to create a weightless leg. Leg comes up, then we build to a standing position. All right, so that's an inside leg stand-up. Let's look at an outside leg stand-up now, okay? We usually use inside leg stand-ups when we can create some kind of disconnection between our hips and our partner's hips. And we usually use outside leg stand-ups when we can't disconnect our hips and there's weight on the inside leg, okay? So whenever my partner does a good job of gluing her hips to mine, like so, and I can't move my hips away from my partner, and there's weight on my right leg, I can't step it up, that's when we go outside leg, okay? So when we have our hands on the floor like so, and we go outside leg, we step up here. So that now, the second we stand up, the head can rise, and this time we step our right leg forward into a situation like so, okay? If we have our partner's hands monitored, she's trying to lock her hands. We're in a situation like so. From here, we come in. And we're out and away. Come in. We're wary of our partner switching to a backhanded arm maybe. We don't want to come up to a referee position and expose our neck. So we're here. So if at any point our partner goes to switch, we have a defensive hand. We play around, we're moving our partner, and we're out. Okay, so now we have inside leg and outside leg. If we want to go inside leg, we create some kind of disconnect from myself and my partner's hips. And from here, with that disconnect, gives us the ability to turn our hips towards our partner and step that leg up like so. And we're up. If there's weight on that leg, however, I feel like as I go to step the leg up, she keeps the weight on the leg, and I can't find a way to create an angle. We angle our hips in the opposite direction, away from our partner. And we go, okay? So we use tripod methods, inside and outside leg stand-up. In general, if we can create a disconnection in our hips from our partners, that's when we use inside leg stand-ups. If, in general, there's weight on the near side leg, and I feel like I can't disconnect my hips from my partners, then we have a weightless outside leg, and we use outside leg stand-ups instead. All right, now let's look at, instead of building up from a tripod, where we have our hands actively monitoring our partner's hands, let's look at a situation where we build to a referee position first, and then we quickly come up to our feet. Now, again, you don't have any defensive hands if you move to a referee position. The purpose of a referee position is to put you in a more athletic position so you can quickly explode to your feet and come up in a more athletic, with a more athletic demeanor. Okay, I don't move to a referee position and hang out there. We never hang out there when we're doing submission grappling. There's too much threat of scores coming in, two hooks coming in, and even a bigger danger of a hand coming around their neck because we have no defensive hands. So if I choose to move to a referee position, I pop up and then I'm right up to my feet, okay? So let's take a look at this. This time, we're gonna come in and again, we use that same, we use any methods to disconnect our hips from our partners and create that separation like so. This time, instead of stepping the inside leg up first, we're going to create that disconnection and we're going to build to our hands. This will give us more space to comfortably step the inside leg up like so. It's a little bit awkward when you're trying to do it from this position. Get a little bit closer. It's a little awkward here when you're trying to do it from this position because your head's in the floor and your head has to rise and the leg just barely fits in. But if your partner tries to strangle you, you have hands inside. Whereas now, you have more space, like so, and the leg can easily come up. But if your head comes up and your partner puts a hand around your neck, this is an issue now. Okay? So the second I go inside leg stand up from here, my partner, most of the time, will always lock her hands from here because I'm not monitoring her hands behind me. Good. We'll lock her hands from here. And now from here, the second I come in, I step up with my right foot flat, my inside leg flat, knee and elbow connection, and strong athletic posture. And now from here, I just get up and I start walking away from my partner and fighting the hands once I'm up. Okay? So we come in. We create separation with my hips and my partner's hips. We build to the hands. And now from here, inside leg goes up. The second I come up to my hands, I'm ready to go. I come up to my hands, up to my foot, and up to standing position. So what this will look like is she's behind me. We're playing around here. I'm moving around. I create a disconnection. And we're up and away. She's behind me. We're moving around from here. We're playing. And we're up and away. Okay? So this time we build to a referee position first. Hands on the floor. More base support. More room for the leg to come up. We go inside leg. Then we pop up right to our feet right from there. All right, let's look at using an outside leg stand up from a referee position this time. Again, if my partner goes to put weight on my near side leg, that's a great time for an outside leg stand up. So whenever I see my partner's, we go in, I can't separate my hips, and my partner's trying to knock me down like so. Again, we go in, we pop up. As the hands come up, the leg comes up, and we end up in a situation like so. Here. And now the second we come up, we just immediately come up to a full athletic posture, and we just shoot up to our feet, and we just walk away. We fight the hands. So we're here. As the outside leg comes up, the hands come up. And we're out and away. Okay? Again, the purpose of using a referee position is to have athletic posture. So the second we come up to the hands, we have no defensive hands now. So you can't just come here and hang out. It's once my hands come up, I'm up to my feet. So we're playing around here. I'm out and away. Okay? Using outside leg stand-ups and referee position, stepping up quickly and exploding right up to the feet in a very quick and athletic fashion. All right, so we've learned the mechanics. Let's look at, when, number one, why would I want to use these escapes, these moves? And then we'll look at, after that, when should I be using these moves and when should I not be using these moves? Okay, so we have the basic mechanics down. Now let's look at, why would I want to use inside or outside leg stand-ups? Number one, this could be a technical decision or it could be a tactical decision. Me personally, I want to do jiu-jitsu. I want to I'm very confident in my guard, and I want to be in positions that will lead me to submission. The place you can spend the most time without any threats of submission is a standing position. So if given the choice, I will usually tend to avoid the standing position and play in the ground because the ground is going to lead me to submissions I'll have submissions much more readily available on the ground than I will in the standing position. But not everybody thinks like that. Let's say, I don't know who you are watching the instructional. Maybe you're a former Division I college wrestler who's looking to go out and win his first jiu-jitsu tournament, and he's never going to be, if someone actually gets behind him and takes him down or sweeps him and gets to his back, he's not going to be rolling to guard. Maybe you're going to be standing up and trying to get away from your partner. So you can be standing up and trying to get away from your partner and reset to a neutral standing position, and maybe you're more confident standing than you are in bottom guard. Maybe you want to stand up and get away from your partner, okay? Or
maybe you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you just want to get better at standing escapes and moving out and away. Or maybe you're good at jiu-jitsu and you have good wrestling, but you don't know really how to combine the two. You're either using your wrestling moves that you learned in school, or you're using your jiu-jitsu moves that you learned later on in life, or before that, whatever the case is. The main takeaway from standing escapes are not that, okay, we're just going to use standing escapes to get up and get away and face our partner. The combination of standing and rolling escapes to guard is what's going to get you out of a very high level player's turtle control. So what I mean by that is, if you just try to just roll to guard and someone's really sticky, they're doing a great job of covering your hips, they're doing a great job of staying chest to back, and you feel like every time you roll, you're just getting your back taken, you got to start changing it up. You got to fake a stand up, and then as the guy goes to chase you and changes directions, then you go into a rolling escape. Or you have to get up, and then as the guy goes to start taking you down, you go into a Granby, and you separate in that fashion. There are many different ways that you can end up in guard through faking standing escapes, or going all the way up to your feet and then using different methods to roll back to guard. So it's the combination of standing escapes, whether it be hips first or head first, and traditional classical shoulder roll escapes, which will move you into escapes that are much more effective than just standing escapes by themselves or just rolling escapes by themselves. So from a technical standpoint, you're looking to use a combination of the two, whether it be four-pointing and wrestling quad potting out and then using those to start your escapes, whether it be standing up head first to start your escapes, or whether it be using an initial roll, far shoulder or near shoulder first to start your escapes, and then you can maybe follow it up with another rolling escape or follow up with a standing escape, and you can play all of these together with one another. Okay, so you can't just use one or the other against a very high-level guy. Okay, and from a tactical standpoint, none of you are me. Maybe you have different things in mind that you're trying to work on. Maybe you're trying to get better at stand-ups. Maybe you're from a wrestling background and you'd rather stand up and get back to neutral, take the guy down, play in top position, rather than just falling over to your hip and putting the guy back in guard. So this can be a technical choice, or it can be a tactical choice, depending on who you are and what situation you're in. All right, let's look at when we're not gonna pop up head first. When there's two main scenarios where you wouldn't come up head first. One is very obvious because you physically won't be able to take your head up first, and the other is not so obvious. Whenever my partner has so much weight going towards my hands that I physically can't build my head up and get to a position where I can get from this position and get my hands off the floor. So for example, if my partner has a chest lock behind me and she runs out to the side and there's so much weight on my hands that I physically can't come up first with my and take my hands off the floor. I'd have to go hips first from here and build up to a 4-point quad pod for wrestlers. Okay, if I'm in a referee position, I want to go head first. I physically have to be able to take my hands off the mat. If there's so much weight on my hands that I physically can't take my hands off the mat to stand up, then I'm never going to go head first from here. Okay, this doesn't make sense. So what will end up happening is I go to go head first stand up, she goes to put weight on my hands, and what will end up happening is I'll have to go into a 4-point first and then work from there and go hips first. Okay, so my hips will rise first, then my head will rise second. Okay, so whenever there's so much weight over my hands that I physically just cannot raise my hands off the floor, obviously we're gonna go hips first, or you do something else. Another one is where, and this goes hand in hand with too much weight on my hands, if my partner has a back, head, and arm, like so. Now there's weight on my hand, but I can potentially come up, like so. But whenever I see there's a back, head, and arm, from this position, you're much better going hips first than you are going head first, okay? If I come in here, even if I have a defensive hand in place, and I go to stand up from this position, like so, my partner can easily put hooks in place. If I go inside leg stand up, she just runs around to the other side, and she has weight over my hands. There's weight on my hands, so I can't pop up explosively, and it just turned into a disaster from here, okay? So whenever my partner has a back, head, and arm, that goes hand in hand with having weight on my hands.
But specifically, if my partner has a backhanded arm, I cannot go into a referee position. Because now there's nothing defending a strangle. She throws a strangle in, hooks come in, and now your back's taken and you're getting strangled at the same time. And it just turned into a disaster from there. So when my partner has so much weight in my hands that I physically cannot build up to a situation where I can get my hands off the floor, and more specifically, I can't use a referee position when my partner has a backhanded arm. I never do that. Okay, you don't even attempt to do that. I can attempt to come up head first, and if my partner has a rear chest lock, there's too much weight on my hands, I can go head first, and then as my head gets taken down, I can pop my hips up and I can go hips first instead. But if you're someone who starts with a backhanded arm, never attempt to build to a referee position. Okay? So that's the first obvious one, is if there's too much weight on your hands for your head to come up, you don't go head first. Now the second one, which isn't as obvious, is you don't stand up head first from a cowboy ride. My partner has her knees off the floor, and she has her two knees pinched around my hips. Okay? Now, why is this? Simple. Because my partner from here is more mobile than I am. If her knees are on the floor, like so, there's no weight on me, so I have a much better. It's much easier for me to athletically and quickly pop up to my feet. And my partner is less mobile than me once I get one leg up. I'm in a more athletic stance than she is now, so I can move. Move more readily than she can. If her knees are on the floor, she only has the choice from here to throw one hook in, and that's the near side hook. Unless she runs around to the other side, if I go inside leg stand up, she has to run all the way around to the other side and put a hook in before I get up. Okay? So there's no weight on me, and I move to a more athletic position than her. I have a more athletic posture than her because I'm bringing knees off the floor. She has knees on the floor. And she can only insert one hook quickly on one side, the near side. But if she's a cowboy rod, she has weight over my hips, which means that I'm going to be less athletic than I usually would be now. My knees are on the floor, and her knees are off the floor, which means she's just inherently more athletic than I am. And whichever side I step a leg up to, she's relatively centered. So she can just throw the opposite side hook in very quickly. So whether I go here, she's a cowboy ride. Let's say she always has to pick one side. She's got to be more to one side than the other. So let's say she's more to this side than the other. That's fine. She's more to the right side than she is to the left side. Let's say I go outside leg stand up. She just quickly inserts a right side hook, and now this is bad for me. Let's say I go inside leg stand up. She's more to the right side. I go inside leg stand up. She's still more athletic and more mobile than I am. So even if I go inside leg stand up, she just hops to the other side, quickly inserts a hook, and now this is no good for me. Then power halves are coming in, and it's just a disaster from here. Okay? So I want to avoid hooks coming in. So the less obvious one is I don't go into referee position and try to stand up if my partner has a cowboy ride, because she can easily run to either side and always insert the hook on the down leg side. Okay? So when there's too much weight in my hands, either with a chest lock or a backhanded arm, or whatever grip your partner puts, even if it's a tight waist, the thigh probably like so. When she tries to stand up head first, she won't be able to do it. Okay? If we go in here, she goes stand up head first, she won't be able to do it. She has to go hips first. That's the obvious one. Or when my partner's in a cowboy ride and both of her knees are off the floor with my hips between her knees, because then she's much more mobile, much more athletic, and it's easy for her to insert a hook on either side, opposite the side I step a leg up on. Okay, so we touched a little bit on this before, technical versus tactical. Let's look at now, from a technical standpoint, when I would actually want to use these stand-ups, these head-first stand-ups. Most of the time, I prefer to use head-first stand-ups when I find, number one, obviously, when there's not tons of weight on my hands, making it impossible for my head to come up. But most of the time, these are applicable when you find someone who's very good at following your back, and when you're doing classical jiu-jitsu roll-throughs, where you're trying to roll over the near shoulder and regard, and you just feel like every time you fall, you almost escape, but your partner does a very, very good job of
creating that upper back exposure, keeping you between their knees, and you feel like you're rolling, and you're almost getting out, but they just find a way to keep recovering and forcing you back to turtle, and you just cannot escape. Okay, so when you see someone's very good at following classical jiu-jitsu escapes, using standing escapes might be a great way to get out, get away, and face your partner. Okay, ultimately the goal from standing escapes is either stand completely up and face your partner, or use standing escapes to use rolling methods, to create motion, to create rolling methods, and exposure back to the floor. Whether you're going to stand up and face your partner, or exposure back to the floor and face your partner, you're going to end up face to face. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Let's say, for example, she goes to roll out she goes into a near side shoulder roll, for example, and she monitors my head. She does everything good. She goes near side shoulder roll, and I fall down, and I end up in a situation like so. And now from here, we're grip fighting. I'm using my legs. She's trying to get her elbow between myself and her. She does such a good job, but I find ways to always pull my partner back in and create some kind of situation where she's almost free, but I can always recover to a position where I can either take her back, maybe you got your back taken a few times, or I almost get the back, but she manages to get out in the way, and she goes back to turtle, and she finds herself in a situation where I'm back in turtle position. Okay? And now from here, she creates separation in the hips, and she goes to hit a Maki Komi roll, and she almost gets me, but I just managed to get my knee between her, and from here, I go in, I start retaking her back from here. So now she tries to bring her back to the floor, but she can't create any disconnect between the chest and the upper back, and she doesn't want to get dragged back in, so she turtles again, and you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to roll, you're trying to get out, you're almost there, but you find yourself in a position where you just can't get this guy off your back. He's so sticky. He's so used to the classical jiu-jitsu escapes that you can't get out in the way. This is the time to use standing escapes, okay? So whenever I see I'm in a situation where I'm down in bottom position, and I'm dealing with someone, they're covering my hips, they're doing such a great job, I can't move, I'm trying to roll, she rolls with me, she follows me, I move out in the way, and now from here, I'm ready to go in, and I stand up. So you can chain these together with your classical near side or far side shoulder rolls, and this gives you another thing for them to think about. Most people are worried about you either just standing up or just rolling to guard. But when you have the misdirection of standing up and rolling back to guard, and you use them in unison, it becomes so much harder to control someone. So this is the time, technically, when I would use the stand-ups or the threat of stand-ups to then go either into full stand-ups and get away, or use the threat of stand-ups to go back into a roll. So maybe I go to build to a standing position. Maybe my partner's here. I go here, and now the second I go up, she goes to come up to her feet, her knees come off the floor, she goes to lock a rear body lock, and from here, then I go right back into a roll, and she's not ready for that. All right, so we're playing around, and as I go to come up, she goes to follow me, we're playing around, I'm playing here, she can't put hooks in, I'm controlling my partner's hand, I go to build up, she goes to follow, and I go right back into a roll, and we're out, and we've recovered. Okay, so using the misdirection of the Kazushi and the threat of standing up will make it much easier for you to inevitably near side or far side shoulder roll. Okay, so now we're gonna look at hips first, standing up. So instead of my head coming up, my hips are gonna rise and my knees will come off the floor. All right, there are a couple of ways to do this. Let's first look at the mechanics of a inside leg 4-point, an outside leg 4-point, and I don't have a name for this, so if you ask John, he might not even know what you're talking about, but I do it all the time, so I'm going to give it a name right now. I call it the tripod pop, where I go from a tripod and I just pop right up to 2 feet simultaneously with an initial Kazushi towards the head and shoulders. Okay, so let's just say my partner has locked hands, she's behind me, she's a chest lock, and I want to look to start moving to a 4-point, okay? We can use inside leg methods, where I create some kind of disconnection. I step the inside leg up, and then from here, as I step the inside leg up, I use my right foot as a drive leg to just raise my hips. Then as I drive, I just pop up to my hands, 1, 2, and I just pop up to my left foot. So I lean to one side, we go 1, 2, this all happens almost simultaneously. We stand up and we move to a 4-point position like so. Okay, so we go inside leg stand up, so the inside leg comes up first, like so, and now I use this as a drive leg
The drive leg is to raise my hips to get my left leg up. So as my left leg comes up, my hands come up, and we're up. So we go inside leg tripod. 1, 2, 3. So without a partner, 1, 2, hands come out. As my elbows rise, my leg steps up. And I use this drive leg to raise my hips. Like so. We move to a 4-point quad pod for wrestlers. Okay? An outside leg 4-point. My partner's behind me. From here, again, this is when I can't create disconnection of the hips and there's weight on the near leg. So I can't step the inside leg up. 1, this time, I push off my right knee to lean weight onto my left foot. As I lean weight onto my left foot, I use that to raise my hips. So I drive off my right knee, I drive off my left foot, and the right knee comes up, so there's no more weightless leg. Or so there's no more weighted right leg. And we pop up. Now we play from here. So without her, we come in, we stand up. If I just try to step my right knee up, it's gonna be hard. So we go 1, 2, 3. So you lean the weight to the left foot pushes the hip off the floor. And we're up. And we're up. And we're up. Okay? Finally, actually one more time with her behind me, whether she has a chest lock, whether she has a hand on the floor, whether she has any of various grips, I can pop up to a 4-point. And finally, this one is what I call the tripod pop, okay? Where my partner is leaning on my hips. She has a connection of her hips to mine, like so. She has a back head and arm, she has a chest lock, whatever the case is. I bump my partner forwards, okay? I find that this is best done when your partner has any grip besides a rear chest lock, but it can work with a rear chest lock, okay? She goes rear chest lock. I bump my partner out and away from my hips, and then I raise my hips up slightly to get her going forward towards my shoulders. Back. So I go slightly towards my partner and then forwards towards my shoulders. And as my knees pop up, my 2 hands hit the floor. Keep your hands up. As my partner moves forward towards my shoulders, the momentum will pull my elbows off the floor. And now we're up and ready to go. Even easier is if she has a back head and arm. I bring my partner forwards, and now I tuck my jaw inside the strangle arm. So I don't have to worry about the strangle anymore. Because she's so far forward, there's no threat of a strangle. That's why I can take my primary defensive hand off now. So she's in here. If she's out this far, then I can just tripod, then I can just 4-point up. But she's behind me. From here, I go towards my partner, like so. I bump her forwards, and we pop up to a 4-point, like so, and then we're ready to work. If she's out this far, there's no reason why, one, I can't just reach over and use the inside leg series, or when she gets to strangle me from here, her hand always comes to the floor. So the back head and arm, if she's out that far, it's a pretty easy thing to just come forwards and pop up like so. Okay? So that's one is the one that I actually use the most. And it's just a matter of bumping. Let's go tight waist this time, tight hand on the floor. Just a matter of bumping my partner slightly to the side, and then my hips rise to get our weight going forward. And as the second my hips come forward, my hands go to the floor. And we're up. And now from here, we can start playing around and working for escapes. So 3 ways to go into a 4-point, inside leg, outside leg, and just bumping your partner forward from a situation where you're in a turtle position and you go from a tripod right up to a 4-point. All right, so there's really only one scenario where you just shouldn't be 4-pointing. And that's when your partner has you in a cowboy run and has your hips covered. Why is this? You can 4-point in any other position besides when your partner has your hips covered. Now, when you do 4-point, understand there are crucifix dangers, whether your partner's, whatever leg position your partner has, whether she has 2 knees on the floor, and a chest lock, for example. Let's say when I go in and I 4-point, no matter where you 4-point from, your partner can always hook your arm. You can start to run into problems here. Whether she has her rear knee down and her top leg up, I can always 4-point from these positions, right? But there's always a chance that my arm is going to get compromised, or my partner's going to go in and throw hooks in. But you can 4-point without immediately getting scored on. There's one position I don't recommend 4-pointing from. I'm not going to say you can't do it, but I don't recommend it because against a good guy, they're going to immediately throw hooks in and immediately get a score. That's when your hips are covered in a cowboy rod. And why is that? When your partner's behind you and you're in a turtle position, they're covering the hips. You have no ability to really monitor your partner's hands from here. The second my hips come forward and I go to pop up to my feet and to my hands, my partner's immediately going to throw 2 hooks in. All right. The second one leg comes up, if I go one leg at a time, then you just put a hook in, and now there's 1 hook in already. That's no good. So the only way that I can do this is by bumping her forwards and by popping up to 2 feet. But the second I do that, she just throws 2 hooks in and she puts double underhooks in and locks a chest lock. And you get scored on every single time. Okay? Even me being so much bigger and stronger than her, if she covers my hips sufficiently, the second I try to bump her off, if she just gets 2 arms locked under my shoulders, the 2 hooks are going to come in. There's just no way. So the one time I don't recommend you 4-point is when your hips are sufficiently covered and your partner can immediately just throw 2 hooks in on either side. So I don't ever recommend building to a 4-point under our rules when your partner can just put 2 hooks in and score, and then you're down 3 or 4 points and your partner's on your back attacking your neck. All right, let's look at now when to 4-point. You can 4-point basically in any single other position than your partner being in a cowboy rod, okay? If your partner's knees are on the floor, if your partner has a back head and arm, your partner has a chest lock, any position besides your partner covering your hips completely and having their 2 knees off the floor with your hips between their knees, you can 4-point in, okay? You can also 4-point if your partner has 1 hook in to escape having 1 hook. And we're going to look at that a little bit later. But just want to make sure that when you're thinking about this escape-wise, you're thinking, okay, am I okay to 4-point here? If your hips are covered in a cowboy rod, don't 4-point. In any other scenario, you can, sure, you're going to open yourself up because you're naturally bringing your knees and your elbows away from each other, but you also increase your chances, you give yourself more potential for movement and more chance to escape. So any other position than your partner having a cowboy rod with your hips covered and between their knees, it's okay to 4-point from, and you won't immediately get scored on. All right, so just thinking about it like this, if I find a cowboy rod, partner's covering my hips, don't 4-point. With any other hand position, leg position, any combination you can think of, it's okay to 4-point out. All right, this is gonna be my favorite clip of the day because I'll get to make fun of how bad Kainan sucks again, like I always do. I actually escaped Kainan's back head and arm from Turtle with this exact move, so I'm going to show it to you right now. He was too dumb to realize that if his hips were on top of mine, he had a back head and arm, he was going to fall off the top. But
we'll look at what actually happened. So Kainan was behind me, and he had a backhanded arm, and he had his left knee, or in this case, I don't know if it was, I'm pretty sure it was this side, his left knee on top of my back, like over my back, like so. Okay. Whenever you're in this position, I have to have a primary defensive hand, assuming we're in this position. But if I bump my partner forward, and I get her moving towards my shoulders, like so, now you're in a position, I'm going to stay on my back. Now you're in a position where if she unlocks her hands to try to strangle me, she's going to fall off the top. So she's committed now to keeping the backhanded arm because of the fact that she'll fall off the top. The only thing she can do from there, is she can post her hand on the floor and not fall, and now there's no threat of a strangle. So when I bump my partner this far forward, this is one of the exceptions to the rule where I don't have to have a primary defensive hand in place now. Okay? So from this position, we actually ended up, it was during a scramble, kind of ended here, and from here, I bumped him forward, and you see I use a very narrow base with my hands, and I use this, what I call tripod bump, to pop up to a 4-point, and then walk backwards. Okay? So from here, he tried to stay too high with the backhand arm, huge mistake by him. I just bumped him forwards. He tried his best to hold on, and he fell off the top. What actually ended up happening is as he realized he was going over, he tried to stand up. So you're going to post your hand this time and try to stay up. I went to a scoop grip on his near leg, and I actually ran him down to the floor. So what happened was we were here. I bumped him forward. He felt he was going off. He was here. I built up to my hands. I backed away, and I caught a scoop grip, and I ran him down to the floor, and then passed his guard, mounted him, took his back, and finished him. But this is the escape that we did there. So he's got a backhanded arm, like so, and he's way too high in the hips. You should never be playing here, okay? From here, I had two hands on the floor. I just bumped him forward, and I used that bump to take me forwards and take my elbows off the ground. And then you just back away, back away, back away. And in my case, I backed away enough to where he fell off. I scooped the leg, and I ran him forward. So anytime your partner has a backhanded arm, using a tripod bump to bring him forward is a great option because of the fact that there's one exception to the rule, and your partner's so far forward in this particular position, you don't have to have a primary defensive hand in place, or any defensive hands. Because if your partner at any point lets go of the backhanded arm and tries to strangle you, they're guaranteed to fall off sooner than later, okay? So you bump your partner forward, and as they're coming forward, you use that momentum to take you weight from your hips onto your elbows, onto your hands, and then off your elbows and off your knees and onto your feet. So we bump our partner forward, and we back away, and your partner will always fall off the top. All right, so now we're in a 4-point quad pod. I'm not gonna go crazy here. There are tons of options. We're not in a turtle position anymore, so I'm not gonna get too in depth here. This is more scrimmage wrestling than it is escaping turtle, but I'll give you some basic options. Once I build to a 4-point, a lot of the principles remain the same. I can't do near side shoulder rolls or Granby if my opponent has a strong connection to my upper back with their chest through a claw grip, and things like that. Actually, you saw a clear example of this. Philip Rowe 4-pointed against me, and I had a thigh pry and a claw, and he tried to do a near side shoulder roll, and I just followed him because of the upper back, of the upper back and chest connection. So a lot of the principles remain the same. Some are different because you're in a slightly different position from here. So let's see what some of our options are. When we're in a 4-point, our partner's out to the side of us, like so. Our first and most basic is just to walk our hands to our feet and stand up. So she's probably going to be somewhere out here or behind me, however she's going to be playing from here. Most of the time more up to the side. Okay, and from here, I can just walk my hands into my feet, and I can shoot a leg forward and stand up. Now, there are many ways to stand up. We're not going to get into those, but our first basic option is just to stand up from here.
Okay, so I walk my hands in. She follows me most likely. Walk with me, good. And now from here, I just shoot a leg forward, and I stand straight up to my feet and start fighting hands. Another great option is we come through, and we can look to shoulder roll. So I start building up. I build to a 4-point. I create motion, and then from here, I just take a cross step with my leg. I shoot my arm across, and we hit a Granby across our shoulders, and we end up facing our partner. So we can go near side shoulder roll options. So I look to create motion from here. As I look to create some motion, we hit Granby, and then we're ready to go in and attack our partner. If my partner has a claw, for example, we can do near side shoulder rolls, just as we did before. But this time, we again trap our partner's elbow. So we come in, she goes to keep base, we roll through, and now we end up in the same position we were in before. We have Kimura, and we're ready to go. If at any point, lock in. If at any point we can go in and we can trap our partner's leg, like so, we can catch, we can sit, and we can use the same inside leg series. So we can use many of the same things that we used in the grounded turtle position as we can in the 4-point. And again, this is not turtle anymore. This is more scrimmage wrestling. There's tons of things I can show you from here, but we're getting kind of off topic. Those are some basic ones: standing up, shoulder rolling, near side, far side. You can roll into your partner's legs. You can do a ton of other things from there. All right, but your basic idea is getting to a 4-point and using the 4-point as a means to create more motion towards an escape. All right, so we looked at head first stand-ups and we looked at hip first stand-ups. All right, these are meant to either get us completely up to the feet or used to generate motion so that our partner chases us in one direction and we can create kazushi and misdirection to then use our classical jiu-jitsu rolling escapes near side or far side shoulder. Okay, if you're in a rule set, for example, like IBJJF, and you get taken down. If you get taken down and your butt's on the floor, 2 points. If you get taken down and you're turtle, 2 points. If you get taken down and you're on your one knee, it's 2 points. The only way there's no score is if you get taken down and before the 3 seconds you immediately turn belly down and 4 point and move out and away. So these are very important, both positions in both wrestling and fighting and in specific rule sets in the sport of jiu-jitsu. IBJJF and ADCC particularly are very important, being able to fight out of 4-point and fight out of turtle position and front headlock, obviously. So the standing escapes, we can go either head first, where our head pops up first and we athletically pop up to our feet right away, or we can go hips first, where our hips come up first and our head stays low, and then we later build to vertical posture with the head, or we go into rolling escapes. Okay, and we looked at ways to use inside and outside leg stand-ups, to use referee position, to use tripod stand-ups, to use 4 points, and pretty much everything, every different kind of stand-up you can use, we used. Okay, so now we're going to connect all the dots for these all these escapes: near side shoulder rolls, far side shoulder rolls, head first stand-ups, and hips first stand-ups. Then we're going to look at what happens if our partner gets one hook and we're in a turtle position. What can we do? All right, so before we go into one hook being inserted, what do we have here? We essentially have escapes ranging from near side shoulder rolls to far side shoulder rolls, which are your typical classical jiu-jitsu escapes. Okay, once we get those down, then we build into your classical wrestling stand-ups. Okay, now these are a little bit different because obviously there's threat submissions, but we can use classical wrestling escapes to stand up, whether we go head first or whether we go hips first. Now, the onus is on you
and as and myself as well, as students of the sport, to be able to use each of these escapes in the appropriate time. Okay, what's going to get you out of a high level player who's very good at attacking and controlling turtle position is not going to be single-handedly relying on classical jiu-jitsu escapes or relying solely on the ability to stand up and get away from your partner using classical wrestling escapes. You have to be able to integrate the two. You have to understand that there are no points for back exposure in the sport of jiu-jitsu. So it doesn't matter if your back gets held on the floor for 2 seconds. It doesn't matter if you get pinned briefly without getting scored on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter most of the time if you actually end up in your back and you end up mounted. What matters is the guy gets 2 hooks in, now your back's taken, now you're getting strangled. So anytime you can expose your back to the floor in whatever fashion, whether it be accepting a bottom pin or whether it be briefly to then keep the motion going and work towards an escape, it doesn't matter if your back's exposed to the floor in most cases, if you're talking about just technical good jiu-jitsu, not talking about points, rule sets, or anything like that. You have to be able to go up and down, side to side, back and forth in order to off balance and misdirect. I'm not going to be able to just go in if I'm behind her. She's not going to be able to just go in and start expecting to roll over her shoulder with one motion. There's no feints, there's no nothing, there's no off balances. She can't just expect to roll over the near side shoulder and not get scored on. She can't just expect to roll over the far side shoulder and not get beat from here. And when you start combining things, like we're here, she's behind me, she has a tight waist. I go to fake the near side shoulder. She goes to move out of the way. Now I go to stand up. I go in, we're playing here. I go to stand up. She goes to follow me. She goes to raise her body up and away to beat me. And then we go in and we start rolling through. You have to be able to go up and down, side to side, back and forth. You can't just expect to go side to side, rolling side to side, and expect to beat a high-level player there. You're never going to escape. They're going to stick to you like glue. You have to be able to go hips first, head first, near side, far side shoulder. You have to be able to use these in unison if you expect to escape anybody high level. You can't just do classical standing escapes. If I know you're going to get up every time, I can keep you down. If I know you're going to roll every time, I can say chest to back. But if I don't know whether or not you're going to go up or down, or whether you're going to roll to this side or that side, or whether you're going to bring your hips up first, your head up first, I don't know. It's so much to follow. It's so hard to keep up with. So you have to be good at all of these, at least competent at all of these, to give the top guy a threat of all of them, and that will make escaping much more easy.